More than 400,000 people have died in the United States alone, and millions worldwide have tested positive for COVID-19. Whether you are HIV positive or negative, we all have a role to play. With COVID-19 occurring across the United States and the world, maintaining a healthy immune system is a priority for people with chronic conditions. Even more so for individuals at risk or living with an HIV diagnosis. Let's start a conversation and share our knowledge and experience about maintaining a healthy and positive lifestyle. Welcome to Positive Dialogue with our host and program moderator David Witchell. Now let's get the conversation started.
Hi everyone, I'm David Witchell. I'm the Vice President of FACT Bucks County. And we are doing this in conjunction with the Bradbury-Sullivan Community Center, bringing you a conversation about HIV and COVID-19. Let's get started. I'd like to introduce you to our panel today. And our first guest is Danette Medina. And I'd like her to introduce herself and tell you a little bit about her, who she is. Danette?
Hello, my name is Danette Medina. I have been working with the HIV population for over 16 years as a medical case manager and now as a counselor. I currently work in the Lehigh Valley area in one of the local community agencies providing services to a variety of vulnerable populations. And I'm also bilingual.
Awesome, great. And now I'd like you to meet Nick Barbati.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Barbati. I am a college administrator at Rider University, where I serve as the Associate Dean of Campus Life, where we've certainly had a interesting time navigating some of the waters of our current situation. Aside from that, I'm also Vice President of Governance for New Hope Celebrates, and just in general, actively involved in the gay entertainment industry as well.
Great, Nick. Thanks so much. And last, our final panelist is Kevin Gilmore. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin Gilmore. I am actually the Director of Operations for a nonprofit for the state of New Jersey. So I help people with disabilities and low-income families find places to live and work in the community. And I'm hoping to answer some of your questions and give you a little bit of knowledge, hopefully.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks to all three of you for getting together with us for this casual and informal discussion. And it's really nice to have you all here, and it's nice to see your faces without masks on.
Right.
Let's start on a positive note. I want to share some information that I received in doing a little research about this, that people that are living with an undetectable viral load and are otherwise healthy are at no greater risk from COVID-19 than anyone else. So I think that's a really positive way to start this conversation today. And let's get the conversation going with the subject of knowing if you have COVID-19. So I think that the conversation is people that are HIV positive already have one pre-existing condition that they're thinking about. It's in the back of their mind. It's always rolling around in their head. What if? And if you're living a healthy lifestyle and you're taking good care of yourself and you have an undetectable viral load and you're just as at much risk as anyone else, the fear of having COVID, how do I know if I have it? What are the signs? What are the symptoms? What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think in general, it's a lot of risk mitigation that everybody needs to take, no matter what your status is, whether you're HIV positive, HIV negative. But I also think that it's just so interesting because so many of us have had to live our lives with awaiting a test result that in many ways will determine your future, how you interact with people you've come in touch with, how, and the possibilities that roll around in your head. And it's certainly not one to equate the two situations, but it is still a mentality. It is still something that you have to worry about and what you have to think about. I also think that just in general, there is, as it comes to risk mitigation and choices that each of us individually make, it's such an interesting thing. I think whereas what people might feel today might be very different from what they felt last March, because it's been such a long time emotionally on people and a long time where people had to navigate different waters of comfort with their friends and their family, partners. If they're single, how they've dated, and then also just in general, it's being uncertain about the type of situation the people you interact with have been in, and all of those convergences can very much speak to, I think, what someone who either is living with HIV has felt at some point, or someone who has been concerned that they might have had that at one point, all different feelings that they might have felt in various different capacities. So it's definitely a challenging time, and one that I think is very taxing on this particular community.
Mm. Dinnette, are you, in the work that you do, are you coming into contact with your clientele having any fears about COVID-19?
So one of the biggest fears is mainly the interaction. But one of the things that I strongly encourage our clients are mainly to focus on using universal precautions when they are in the workplace, and as well to take, if options to work from home, more accessible, as well as to take as many FMLAs if needed, just to make them their security. One of the things I also encouraged them to do was to engage into mental health, just because of the ongoing issues of feeling that they're more vulnerable than other patients.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Right. I kind of feel in the population that I support, they're already used to people prejudging them, and already having a feeling about them. And in this situation now, everybody's kind of under the same scope. So I think, in a way, it's an awakening for all of the community to see what it feels like on the other side, to finally be like, oh, well, wait a minute, maybe I'll think about it before I make a statement about how somebody else feels, because right now we really don't know who is a spreader, and it's frightening. And it's a terrifying place for anybody to be in. So on a positive note, I'd like to, have people just be aware that the way you treat people, the way you greet people, you don't know what another person's day is like. You can change somebody's world just by saying hello. You don't know the angst that they're going through. They may have had a test and they're waiting for the result, or they may have been in contact with somebody and they're petrified. You know what I mean? So you walking by somebody and just being grumbly could destroy somebody, or you could lift them up. It's one of those things, just be like, I'm not alone. Right now, we really need to be like as close as we can be. I think one of the larger issues that I just went through, I lost my father in September, not from COVID, although I worked very hard to make sure that he didn't get it. But in the end, he was in the hospital. I was very grateful that the hospital allowed me to be with him when he passed. That was my biggest fear. And I think that that's a large fear for the community right now, is that you can't go in and be with people in their final stages. And I was petrified that he would be alone and not understand. He was 92 and not understand that I wasn't there because I didn't want to be, just because I couldn't be. And I couldn't get him to understand that. And the doctors offered, they're like, well, we can do a Zoom call. And I'm like, you don't understand that. He's not going to understand that. I don't want him to think that I'm screaming at him through a screen. I don't want that to be the final memory that I have for him. And it was, I was very blessed that they allowed me to come in. I was able to be there. I think I would have been a basket case had I not had that, but not everybody gets that opportunity. So you have to really be cautious to not put yourself in that situation if you can avoid it. And I think that's where we really have to bring in the whole idea of mental health and talking about mental health. It's really not that taboo anymore. It's a way of life now. And I think that has to be addressed.
Kevin, you made such an interesting point that just so resonated with me of, when you're at a point of anxiety, a point of stress, and which COVID is certainly having on everybody, how sometimes the simple smile of a stranger can change your whole day. And that's quite hard with the current situation we're in, because most of the time we're seeing people who are the strangers to us in masks. And I was going for a walk the other day, and I made eye contact with this woman in a car, and we just waved back and forth to each other. I thought this is such a strange concept. Under typical circumstances, you wouldn't see that. But the thread of connection that we're all facing right now, it's those simple actions and simple behaviors, which maybe we wouldn't have done otherwise, suddenly become so imperative to keep us all going. And I just think that that's such an interesting point.
Have you all been noticing that stress level in just the community in general is just so amplified with all this?
Yeah, I think it's a different type of stress. I work with 18 to 22-year-olds every day, hundreds of them at a time. Mm-hmm. And, in general, I think the pressures on that age group in general they're very different than maybe when we were all 18 to 22, which I assume none of us are on this call. But, but it's a different type of experience. When you talk about, let's even talk about, gay or trans students that are away at college or, maybe are at high school or in high school, really trying to figure out, who they are or really navigate those waters of, I feel comfortable in one capacity when I'm at school versus another when I'm at home. Well, they're at home a lot now in capacity, spending times with families where they can't escape to be who they really feel most called to be. And that is such a different level of mental health challenge that COVID has posed on our growing aging, our college age and high school age population, and maybe even younger, that I think is just such an underwritten element of this whole story. Because listen, it's amazing that these young people can feel such a sense of openness that maybe a lot of people from our previous generations did not have. But now it's almost like putting them back in the closet in many capacities, which is, a very sad prospect.
Yeah, it is. It's very frightening for them. You know what I mean? And just like you mentioned, on one hand, when they're away at school or wherever they're most comfortable, that is not there now. Now they're suddenly not able to do that. And so then there's an angst that comes about you. Like, I can't be who I normally am. So then you're trying to hide that and deal with wearing a mask and not being able to reach out other than social media to try to talk. And where do you go in social media to meet somebody if you're new to the scene? If you're just becoming transgender, you don't know where to type and go and say, "Oh, hey, how you doing? This is what I'd like to know." It's not that easy. So you've got that added to the other stuff that you have, which is frightening.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because now you've identified the problem. Can we talk about some suggestions or ideas, some solutions for these young people, these college age kids that are really trying to find themselves, coming of age, now finding themselves trapped at home or in a situation where they can't even date. They can't go out and meet people because they're afraid now.
Right.
I mean, when we were growing up, we were worried about, HIV. Now you've got that plus COVID. So global pandemic, and I want to date now. What do I do?
Well, I think the answer is I was going to say, well, I think all of us have a little something to add. I think
that was the hot potato I was going to throw out.
I'll catch it first. I think the first point is there are so many means of connection that we just associate with entertainment, which also could be used as points of connection on a growth level. For example, when you hear, I think so many of us have gotten comfortable with saying like TikTok. I don't even want to learn that. That seems like so complicated. But that's not only how young people keep themselves entertained. It's also how they connect to people and learn about each other and actually express themselves in their own little world. And I really think if COVID has done nothing else, it's given people time to pause and learn about maybe people who've come before them, about mentors that could be out there, and the accessibility of being able to connect to people is so different than it was, even 10 years ago, where you can connect with, let's say, famous people, but even not that, just people that you admire, or people you've read about who have done amazing things. People in our community that have reached legend status, if you would. You can connect with them on Facebook chat in a way that allows you to continue to grow and continue to learn from people, which maybe you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise when you were going through your everyday living of going to class and hanging with your friends and whatnot. This truly can be a learning opportunity. And I think it's also conversely imperative for organizations like FACT and other organizations to use this as a time to reach out to young people, to then grow their constituencies and grow their connection points, because they're so in desperate need of it and they have a captive audience, whereas on a typical year, they might not.
Right.
It's an interesting thing.
Go ahead, David. Right.
So
I think actually social media, actually, if you have those questions and you want to answer those, you could start a blog or you could start something, and invariably somebody else who has the same interest may reach out to you, and that's where it starts. It's going to be organic, because then you take that little bit and somebody else adds something to it, and somebody else who does have knowledge in it may come in and say, well, back in my day, this is how it happened, and put the two of them together, and then you find a happy medium. But it establishes friendships and relationships that can keep you going. You know what I mean? You can reach out to people all times of the day and night. There's always somebody up. It's almost like New York City. There's always something going on somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always look for something positive and something negative. And to me, the bright spot in all this with dating or getting to know someone or even just making friends is that now we're given an opportunity to have that space and time to really get to know someone before you become intimate. So maybe this is going to be the age and era of really long-lasting, committed relationships. And something really wonderful will come of it.
Yeah,
So, go ahead, Danette.
One of the things that I can say is that I've engaged with a lot of the young kids in therapy aspects. And one of the things that I've learned that a lot of them weren't aware of is how to build healthy relationships. And I focus the majority of my time with my therapy sessions with them is role playing and teaching them and understanding what healthy boundaries are and what healthy coping strategies are, and just going from there. So it's been an eye-opening for us to be able to see that. And sometimes, the little brother comes in and asks questions while you're in the session too, so that at the same time, we're kind of normalizing mental health just for it being accessible for them within their own home, within their own means, and at their own time when they wanted it. So that's the best part about it right now with COVID, is that, talking about the positive point, I feel comfortable talking about therapy with anyone if they want it. And I know some even insurance companies have completely eliminated their co-payments to make sure that the patients are getting engaged into therapy. So,
right.
Great. Let's move on to the idea of what are your clients and people that you know in your life doing right now to stay not just mentally fit, but physically fit. Some of those would be helpful to somebody that's wondering what they can do.
So I'll start off.
Okay.
One of the biggest things that I've noticed is people are going outside, and it's beautiful, it's embracing, and it's amazing, from mountain biking to taking nature walks to starting new scavenger hunts. I don't know if anyone's familiar with geotracking. That is all coming back. Geotracking is where you take little things with you and leave them in little boxes throughout parks, and just sharing information with other people. A lot of people are able to feel more comfortable being outdoors and learning how beautiful nature can do for a soul. So just various things that even myself has learned how to do so many more hikes in a lifetime that I ever thought that I could do, just to keep myself sane. Because the coping strategies that was my favorite was going to concerts, and that was eliminated right away.
Right.
Great.
Yeah, it's going to be a totally different world as far as concerts and those things that you like to do. And as far as performing, which is an odd thing now, which is, you can't handle money. You can't handle, you have to wear a face mask. You have to do all these different things. So it's kind of forcing us to change the way that we're used to dealing with performances. It's a totally different arena. I questioned whether we'd ever even be able to get back to it, but somehow we're finding ways to do it little by little. And people are nervous about going out and doing it. But I think if we want to have entertainment, we're going to have to find a way to deal with it safely. And that is the key, because not having it is just going to lead to more depression and more reasons of, I can't go do this. I can't do this. A lot of times with my clients, I'm like, well, let's spin it and find out something positive that you can do. You know what I mean? Like, we don't normally have a conversation this long. I mean, I talk with them about things now, more so now than I did before this came around, because they're stuck. They're like, well, what are we going to do? I'm like, well, we can gripe about it all day, or we can turn this into a positive thing. And so we went for a walk and we talked about what? You know what I mean? And it's really nice therapeutic to be able to talk to them and give them the other side of something. And they all stop and look at you like, well, I hadn't thought about it that way, because you're usually bogged down with other things going around and you don't concentrate on that one thing, that one issue,
Yeah.
which has been a nice positive.
Yeah. I was always someone who I loved going to the gym after work on cardio machines. Clearly I have no muscles to me right now, but so for me, the idea of now reintroducing gyms into my life wearing a mask to do cardio is impossible. I can't think that is something for me to be able to achieve both my physical health as well as my mental, just come down from the day. So I totally have embraced the walks I walk up and down to the Dunkin' Donuts every morning on my days off, and down and around the woods and whatnot, just to get my physical health going. And I think that's what a lot of people that I'm aware of do. I think people were so excited to be able to go outside, but then that was kind of like the gateway to, in the springtime when we were able to go outside, then, people's desires, I think, for summer and a proper summer kind of came into effect. I know when it comes to the entertainment, as Kevin was referencing, we all were, I'm sure, in that phase come April and March, where Zoom was so novel and playing creative ways of connecting with people online seemed, so fun. And you raced home to go on house party and see who was on it and whatnot. And now that whole idea just seems so old and so foreign, because if anything, we talk about physical health, the idea of just sitting in front of a computer screen isn't exactly, the portrait of health. But yet, for a long time, it was our only window into our mental health, was to be able to connect to people. So there were so many things that were just being juggled in that moment. And I think I see this, every day there's a total lack of enthusiasm for virtual programming and using that as the outlet for connection. But there's also, when you ask people in life, what do you want to do? The stuff that they want to do is stuff that we quite simply cannot do on our daily basis. We can't go into a careless exchange in a movie theater. You can't go to Kevin's point about a concert. I mean, for me, that is just like where my soul soars. And then the idea of not only not having that for the past year, but the likelihood of not having that normalcy for a very long time. I mean, that's very daunting for people. Mm-hmm. So people have had to learn how to enjoy their entertainment in a completely different way. And in many ways, I think that their long-range reverberations of people's health haven't even been seen yet, because those coping mechanisms that people put into entertainment, that takes many years to kind of unfurl to see the true impact of not having that on a daily basis. But that's where I worry about people taking risky behaviors to achieve that thread of connection with people. And that's why I think that we all need to hold our friends and each other, our families, accountable for the behavior, not just related to COVID, but kind of, as it relates to, your dating life and what you welcome, who you welcome into your life, because it has so many different reverberations as it relates to the typical healthy decisions you would want to make in a typical year. Then pair that with, what you're bringing from someone maybe you don't know so well home to your loved ones or to you. I mean, it's quite complex and really, raises the typical standards of risk on any kind of dating life and puts them in a very magnified kind of way.
Mm-hmm. We're still in January, so I think it's still safe to talk about New Year's resolutions and things that people talk about doing and changing in the new year. And you're just making that process that people go through. And when this all started, you're right. I think everybody was like into the novel new way of communicating or doing something. But then you're right, boredom sets in. Then 21 days is the time that it takes to change a pattern of behavior. So now you've got people in these new patterns of behavior, and it's affecting people in different ways. Some people, they handled it great. They got themselves on a new routine. They're in a new groove. They're doing great and no problem. But then I'm seeing other people, and I'm sure you guys are seeing the same thing, where people are falling into depression. They're falling into bad habits, bad patterns of behavior. So keeping in mind that it's that 21 day, that's kind of that magic button where you now have a new pattern of behavior. What are some of the things that you're telling your young students besides like, hey, get out and take a walk, or are you talking about establishing new situations and new ways of thinking and sticking with it for 21 days so that you become enmeshed in your new habits?
Well, I think what we have really doubled down on is being able to provide far-ranging services that people then can also take to then gain skills that they'll take into their everyday life. Like, you have never seen so many young people suddenly interested in learning how to cook or to bake and all these other things which we are offering classes on that we never would have ever thought to do. And you can present them in a hybrid kind of way. So some of the students who are actually still on campus can be able to do some things from their residence hall rooms, but then also the vast majority of the students who are off campus still be able to gain those life skills, which, it's very hard, in any kind of capacity to penetrate someone's extracurricular time and help them navigate 21 days. But you can give them skills that are of interest to them. I know back in April, I said, while this is going on, I'm going to learn to bake, and I'm going to bake one dish every week. I thought this was going to go till May. The fact that I still am baking a peanut butter cake this weekend, which, by the way, fell on its face into the sink and trashed anyway. But that's where we all are. And I think at the end of the day, David, though, what circles back to it is sometimes people will bring you new skills or new mindsets and that you can take on. But it's also about choices that we're all going to make in terms of tie it to either New Year's resolution, a COVID resolution, or just long range behavior that we all want to take on. So much of the health that we are going to have during this time period are our choices. And it could come in the form of learning, like deciding to enter reading into your life, which a lot of, I think, young people do not do, which is also not only just an entertainment element, but also such an anxiety reducer, I think, for a lot of people. And I do think, a lot of people have entered in the world of, when we talk about fitness, virtual fitness programs, whether it's actual fitness workout programs or yoga or other different, exercises, meditation, which they never would have looked up otherwise. So, our hope is that we can all collectively put that information out there, and as many people as possible could grasp onto it.
Great. I did that in April. I actually became a professional baked good taste tester. So I can now sample all of your baked goods and let you know if they're really going to bring us to the market.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Bring them on over. I'll taste test them.
Fair enough.
And my dog, by the way, my dogs love peanut butter. So the next time you drop peanut butter, save it for the boys.
That's perfect. Make sure they wear their masks over, though.
Before we move on to the next subject, I do want to point out that in talking to David Damsker, when we were working through our protocols for opening up our businesses, one of the things that he found that he wanted us to add to our protocols was the loss of sense of smell or taste. So if you are wondering, back to the original question where we all started with this so far, was if you're wondering if you have COVID, because it resembles so many other flu-like symptoms, if you've lost your sense of taste or smell, there is a very strong possibility that you have COVID. So I just wanted to be sure that I got that one out there. And that was definitely compliments of Dave Amsker from the Bucks County Board of Health. I so greatly appreciated that because it actually saved us. A client checked into our salon, and in the questionnaire, they wrote that they've lost their sense of smell. Otherwise, they felt completely fine. So we had them go get tested. So that was a big deal. And I thought, everybody needs to know about that. So moving on, the subject of healthy eating. Do any of you want to take the potato of talking about healthy eating? Is that something you want to talk about? Besides baked goods. Nobody wants to talk about eating. Everybody's on a COVID diet, huh?
So, I can tell you with COVID, I lost about 25 pounds so far. So I can tell you so much is just making sure what you don't have in your house. One way that I encourage even my clients is just showing them moderation. And I think that's been helpful on some things, even with like binging and even different type of things that they can do with food, from TV to eating, making sure that they're moving their bodies. One of the things also that I encourage our clients is to see how many times they can do the flight of steps. So, and a certain amount of time, kind of like competition with each other. And just seeing how different things help. Clients have reported that it's been helpful to not bring certain things home because they're pretty much at home all the time. Or even getting bigger bags and then dividing them up into small snack sizes so that they know that they can keep themselves from not having it as much. And teaching them like what it is to have a backstash, having certain things available to them right away, just having different options and how much. And a lot of people have been seeing how much social media has been about healthy eating. They've been learning a lot just from like Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok too. I love the meditation TikTok that they have out there. Just like different things that they have. So it's nice and neat to see how people have been able to use it to encourage the healthy lifestyle. So I can tell you that much. So those are some of the things that I've been able to do myself, even though, we do save our ice creams for that Friday night because I'm already exhausted to make sure. But of course, you need to make sure you can scale the options. And then there's some days that it's just like, you have to indulge with some stuff. So.
And Kevin, you said before we started taping today, you've lost some pounds and you're very happy about it. What are you doing to keep yourself on track?
Actually, I have lost quite a bit of weight. I am happy about that, though. I've been really cooking a lot and finding interesting ways to cook. One of my challenges is to find a meal and to look it up on either Facebook or one of those things and find out what I can make. I've made it a challenge. A lot of times in life when I have things that are odd, I try to make a challenge out of it. So my goal is to try to make a meal for under $5, for 2 people and make it healthy. So that's been one of my challenges, to go and find the ingredients and to break it down and to make it and, take pictures of it. And it's actually gorgeous and it's good for you and it's spent less than $5. So I'm hoping to turn it into a book. that is one of my goals there, though. But it's been quite interesting and it has been working. So I'm happy with the way that I look and I'm hoping that people will get to see it soon. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that I've been doing to keep things and keep myself and my mind active and be healthy.
Good. I think that, that goes back to what we talked about earlier, how, it's all about the choices that you make. And we've all been dealt this pandemic and it's global and nobody gets a free pass of avoiding it. So it really is a matter of choices. And taking care of your body and taking care of your mind are something that you have to really set your goals towards and stay focused on them. So I think you all have contributed and given some really good ideas. I do want to circle back to something that I think is important for anybody that might be listening to this. And that would be, where can people go to find out if they are COVID positive? Is it contact your doctor? Is there student housing? Is there something on campus where people can go? And Dinnette, do you have resources? So tell us about that.
So I'm currently in the Lehigh Valley, and I can let you know that there's various different pop-up testing sites. You just want to make sure that some are covered by insurance and some are not. And there is some free walk-in clinics that do provide it for free. So there's various different locations that can provide it. So one of the areas right now that they were doing was like drive-through testing, and then other places were doing just at the different resident facilities.
And are there places that you can suggest, any one of the three of you, where people could get some mental or emotional support for if they're feeling like they're stressed out or they're feeling lost or confused?
Well, David, to your earlier question about testing for young people, I think many, especially at the dawn of COVID and then even through the fall seasons, I think that testing in education was really hard to come by. I think it was really, in general, something that many schools, whether it's colleges or otherwise, didn't really have in large numbers at their disposal. But it seems like entering into these later winter and early spring months will be something that most educational areas will be introducing in more of a randomized kind of way, but with a higher frequency, to protect the overall community that will be there. And that's a positive thing in general. And so I think that there will be in the different education outlets more testing. I think today the Arena right now in Trenton is doing free testing that is not by appointment, that you can show up to. And I think a lot of us, in whether it is in education, which often have counseling services or counseling centers attached to them, I think we can always be encouraging not only students to go and pursue those services, although they might not traditionally be in their just right in front of them because they don't have to walk anywhere. I think it's helping people understand that you can get some of the services delivered over the computer. And so I think that that's something that we have to encourage, and also, encourage the staff of all of these places, which are, whether it's healthcare, whether it's in education or whatnot. These people have been on the front line for so long, and sometimes literally on the front line, others just being essential workers for so long. They've had to be so strong for so many different people for months on end now without really ever being able to come down or have a vacation or just be able to focus on themselves. And I think those individuals, whether they need it or not, realize they need it or not, could only benefit from speaking to someone and getting some of their experiences off their chest. And I think that in general is something that we need to encourage people to do.
Good. And I understand that there's also a lot of links to support on the Bradbury-Sullivan website. So
Correct.
That would be a good place for people to go for resources as well. Good.
So I was just looking up for the Bucks County 24-hour hotline, and that is something that you can look up in any county that you're in, and they provide 24-hour coverage for any of them.
Right.
Great. Well, that's bringing us to kind of like get close to a wrap up, guys. Do you have anything that you really wanted to share with the audience that they would find something they could take away as a positive for this period of time that I left out?
I don't think you left anything out. I think as a positive note, I just say reach out to your fellow human being, be accessible. Talk to them about whatever you're going through, and open your mind and listen. I think communication is the key. I think that's the key to all of this, actually.
Loneliness is a real thing, and there's no reason to be lonely or alone. There's always someone there. So, through our FACT website or through Bradbury-Sullivan, we've got resources listed, and there's always someone to help out and not leave you stranded and alone. And I can't even imagine, what there's just got to be. No one should be left alone. Everyone should be able to talk to someone. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, Kevin, I was just thinking about literally, what was it, 2 weeks before COVID broke loose, you and I did an event for 400 and some people, and small crowd. We thought it was the start of, we were going to have amazing events going forward this year and whatnot. And then today I got a really interesting email of someone who said, hey, one thing I've really tried to do over COVID is learn to do drag. And can you point me in touch with somebody? So I gave him the name of somebody on this call, and I said, you can reach out to this person via Facebook. So this goes to an earlier part of the conversation of, really using this time period to, it sounds so hokey, but it is such an important time where, you remember at the start of everything, the start of the quarantining, people would say, this is your time. If you don't use this time to learn a new skill and blah, 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 then you're wasting this once in a lifetime opportunity. But that wasn't entirely true, because so many people were going through the trauma of it all that you couldn't have an expectation of behavior. But enough time has gone by now that we can encourage people to take risks, to take the next step of fulfilling their dreams in a more attainable capacity in this world, and get them connected to people that can further them. Because the one thing we can't let COVID do is stop us from growing and stop us from living out those dreams that we've always had. And it might look different, but dreams often do when they come to fruition. And I think that right now it's about not just surviving, but thriving. And I think, we have to make that, to use a word that we've all used a pivot into really focusing on how we can live our best lives during COVID rather than just getting through the year. Because we don't have the excuse anymore, like, I can't wait for 2020 to be over. Well, it's 2021, still things feel pretty similar to they did 2 weeks ago. So let's find it. And the other thing is, let's be a community. Let's really all come together when there's need and come to supporting each other without judgment as best we can, and with the true love and the spirit that puts all of us together into wanting to give back and help people in whichever ways we've been called to do. So just remember our purpose, remember the energy that we bring to a space, and remember to help pushing everyone else forward, which is really all we can do right now.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. You've been really amazing. I found this to be very fluid, fast, informative. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed every minute with you guys. I do have to say that this event was made possible because of grant funding for Bradbury-Sullivan LGBT Community Center from Gamma Move Foundation and Keystone Savings Foundation. I needed to say that, so I had to get it in before we go. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope that we get to do this again. And I agree that with community together, we're stronger and we can get through this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.